lines are open for my guest, Dr. Edwin Vieira. You can find his articles at newswithviews.com. His book's available at amazon.com. Just go to the search engine there and type in Edwin Vieira, V-I-E-I-R-A, V-I-E-I-R-A, and go to YouTube. All kinds of presentations there, seminars that he's given, speeches, and get up to speed on this. Well, a solution. So, Dr. Vieira, Janet, the lunch lady there, says everything is great. Everything's wonderful. Economy's picking back up. We've got, almost no unemployment, and so, well, we won't raise interest rates right now, maybe later. But don't worry, folks. Don't worry, you folks out there, the masses. Everything's good because Janet, the lunch lady, says everything's fine.
Right. The experts have everything.
All that?
Experts have everything well in hand, as they have had everything well in hand for the past 20 or 30 years. How were these experts in control? Did this pass? Did we ever come to this problem?
Let's see.
This is a question I always ask. We have these brilliant people, and they've been in charge since, the end of the Second World War. All right, we were on top of the world in the end of the Second World War, and they have systematically taken all of these steps, and at each stage they have told us everything was fine, and we've sunk deeper and deeper and deeper. Well, now we're in a very deep hole. We're in a septic tank going down for the third time, maybe. But she's saying, well, it's not as deep as you think, right? Just trust us a little more.
Yes.
And I said, well, we wouldn't be here if we hadn't been fools and had trusted you all these years, you and your predecessors, actually. Right? The Greenspans and the others, all of whom told us that everything was in good hands with Allstate.
Yes.
In a manner of speaking.
We've got a caller online. Who we got?
This is Sean from Greeley.
Sean, are you doing better now than you were 10 years ago?
Absolutely not, and that is the main reason why I called. I mean, when you said that completely woke me up. I'm going to be 32 this year, and I was making more money when I was 19 years old. And I don't know how to build a future for my family, and my friends. My mom just passed away, and she didn't have anything to leave to us. Everything was stolen from her retirement, her 401ks.
They went all down the tubes in let's see, the crash of 2007 and 8.
Right. Yeah, and I guess I'm kind of trailing off. But my main question is, what's the end game? Like, what do we do to actually build a future for ourselves? How do we build? How do we accumulate stuff to leave, to our family, and so on?
Well, the two great powers of government, as all political philosophers in Western civilization have pointed out, are the power of the purse and the power of the sword. Right? And we've allowed both of those powers to be taken away from the people and put into the hands of these elitist groups. Now, the power of the purse, talking primarily about the monetary and financial system. And of course, that's under the control of this central banking regime and the fiat currency system. And so we have to return. That will collapse of its own weight. We have to take the steps to provide the alternative that allows us to return to a sound, honest, constitutional monetary system. And that can be done through the states because the states retain the reserved constitutional power to make gold, silver, coin, and tender in payment of debts. And that's a power that Congress cannot override because it is explicitly reserved, not some kind of vague 10th Amendment power. It's explicitly reserved within the body of the original Constitution. And there are some states that are beginning to take steps in the correct direction. I've been working on this for years, probably a decade, more than a decade. We start in Utah, where they actually passed a bill. It's what I would call a kindergarten level, entry-level bill, for gold and silver coinage to be treated within that state as legal tender in their courts. Texas took a big step, about a week ago? They passed the Texas Gold and Silver Depository Bill. So now they have an actual institutional structure within the state and controlled by the state because it is a state institution whereby people can use that institution for holding gold and silver, for acquiring gold and silver, for transferring gold and silver in business transactions, so forth and so on. And that's something that is fundamentally important.
Stay with us, Sean. We'll be right back here on the American Freedom Network.
Howdy, folks. Have you ever thought about...
Hear it first on FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net. The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
You're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com worldwide. Freedom is never free. We need your support today at FirstAmendmentRadio.com.
You can find his articles at newswithviews.com, his books at Amazon.com. Just type in Edwin Vieira, V-I-E-I-R-A, and get an education. We've got caller Sean online. So, Sean, if we put forward, we get a bill put forward here in Colorado, one of the things you could do is help us out. Get on the phone, educate your friends and neighbors that, hey, we've got an honest weights and measures bill here in Colorado. Get your state senator, your state rep, and just get active. That's one of the.
And I think I believe that 100%. And I mean, I'll listen off air, but I think that's exactly it. I think people need to start getting up and getting out and getting active, because the rich are getting richer and the poor, I don't even want to say they're getting poorer. The poor just aren't moving. They're not going anywhere. They're staying poor. And it's not fair anymore. People need to start getting up and need to take action, because we don't have much of a future anymore if we look at it. And that's scary.
The meat packing plant there in Greeley, where now they've imported all kinds of Somalis into work in the meat plant because,
yes,
let's see, that's jobs that Americans don't want to do. Yeah. Okay.
If they paid a living wage, I'd be more than happy to do it. You know, it's a living wage though, and there's no places here that pay a living wage. I don't know if it's this state, which I've heard a few people say that, oh, it's the state you live in, and I'm wondering about that. I'm really wondering if that's true, but I don't. I look back at my grandpa and grandma and how they had land and they had multiple cars and businesses, and they accumulated stuff that they could leave, you know, to their family. And I don't see anybody doing that now.
No, well, the game has been rigged. The game has been rigged in favor of the large corporate interests, the so-called one-percenters. And somebody has to pay the freight for that kind of a system. And who is that going to be? Well, it's going to be the mass of the people. I mean, in a free state, would you have these disparities, these huge disparities in wealth? Would you have these problems of unemployment or underemployment? Would you have these problems of people being unable to amass wealth, a certain amount of wealth over their lifetimes that they could pass on to their children in terms of homes, retirement savings, or what have you? It's hard to imagine a free society by any rational definition of the word freedom, which would not have all of those problems dealt with, because a free society would cater to the interests of the vast majority of the population, not simply to the 1% that ran Wall Street or the big corporations. So economically, you can see we don't have a free society, because the economic structure that a free society would generate is not here, and it's systematically been destroyed. Certainly in my lifetime, I can remember the 1950s, for heaven's sakes. Although I guess our caller can't, but I can remember it vividly and what went on then. And our system has been systematically destroyed and it's not accidental, it's for a set of particular purposes, of particular people, particular interest groups. And until the vast majority of Americans get off their couches and take control of their own political system from the grassroots, the local level up, this will continue. We'll be put into the state of the Greeks, or soon the Italians, the Portuguese, and the Spanish. And what will we be able to do about it? Well, the short answer is if we keep sitting on the couch, we'll be able to do nothing, because our economic status will be driven down further and further, and we'll have fewer and fewer resources to devote to political action. And that's why I talk about the alternative monetary systems all the time. I'm talking about this for more than a decade. All right, in 1983, I was talking about this in 1983. I wrote a book on this in 1983. All right, tells you how far back this goes. That we have to have an alternative monetary system that is suitable for a free economy. And we have to put it in ourselves, because the bankers and their friends will not do it for us. That's obvious. What's interesting is we now have the opportunity. If you had told someone, as I did in the 1980s, 1990s, turn of the century, alternative currencies were necessary, I usually was laughed at. Oh, we don't need to worry about that. Now we see the consequences of not worrying about it. Now we have a set of circumstances where the average American, if he opens his eyes, can see that if something isn't done in this realm, he is going to end up living in a third world country in his own backyard. He won't have to go to Somalia. He can live it right here. Now that brings you to the second great
I'm afraid that's what it's coming to.
Of politics, which is
that's what scares
the
me.
sword. All right, the militia. We are going to have economic and social turmoil in this country as a result of the breakdown of the economic system, monetary system primarily. No matter what we do in terms of bringing in alternative currency, because we can't bring an alternative currency in fast enough to correct all of these problems, there will be difficulties. That's where the militia comes in. Control of social disorder, bring back that control into the hands of the local people. Because if you have a breakdown of a monetary and banking system, the economic structure goes to Hades in a handbasket. You have social dislocation, civil unrest. What are the people in Washington, D.C. planning to do under those circumstances? Well, they have a two-word solution: martial law, or, to other words, police state. That's their solution. And they're setting it up. They've been setting this thing up from before the Patriot Act. So we
and
have
I
to
guess
get
that's
those
kind
two
of my
elements.
question: is
two
how do we
elements of the
avoid
political
that?
control by the people.
Is it possible to avoid that? I mean, because the bottom line is
it's possible to mitigate it. It's possible to mitigate the economic crisis if you put the alternative systems into place soon enough. Well, it's like any other disease, right? Oh, you have this disease, you haven't been taking care of it. Well, you're going to suffer a little bit. We may have to do an operation, but eventually we can get it under control. But there will be some suffering because we put off the solution for too long. The other side has their own solution. When the suffering comes, they're going to prevent people from taking necessary political action by using police-state mechanisms. That's pretty obvious. Otherwise, they wouldn't be setting these mechanisms up. They're very costly, difficult to set up. Why would you need them unless you anticipated that something was going to happen? So the two things go hand in hand. The people have to demand an alternative financial system, money and banking, and they have to demand that the security, the provision of security, is put back where the Constitution requires it, in the hands of local people through the militia. Then we won't have to worry about the worst effects of a monetary collapse, and we certainly won't have to worry about someone imposing a police state through some variant of martial law on us. But if you don't do those two things, I'm telling you, as sure as I'm sitting on this phone talking to you, that you're going to end up in a first-class police state in this country and in third-world economic conditions. And you can write that down.
Please correct me if I'm wrong, but are you saying that we need to just take it into our own hands? We need to start anything from, I guess, I don't want to say martial law, but anything from, creating a militia to the banking industry to...
Get a copy of this show. Call the station, get a copy, and take it to the sheriff there in Weld County, and or take it to your friends, and then a group of you go in and say, Sheriff, here we've got Dr. Edwin Vieira pointing out where we're headed if things don't change, and so you're the top law enforcement, you're the top peace officer in the county. How can we help you not go down this road to tyranny and a police state and martial law? Because, well, quite frankly, Sheriff, you're here to serve the people. Now, how can we help you in this endeavor?
That's right.
You know what? That's a great idea. You know what? Thanks, Randy. I love your show. Thanks, Doc. I appreciate all your advice. Thank you.
Hey, Sean, thanks for calling, and pray to the Lord. The Lord will guide you in this. But the sheriff, the oath keepers out there. I mean, you're a part of the oath keepers there in Virginia.
Oh, sure.
That these guys, you're educating them. They're learning on this. So here we are. I mean, here we got guys that are willing to come out and whatever it is, one day a month or 1 week a month, one night a week, that are coming together and discussing these things. That's what the militia is about, isn't it?
And they'll be willing to do a great deal more as soon as the political authorities, you talk about the sheriffs, the county councils, what have you, all the way up to the state legislatures, as soon as these people recognize the necessity for them to have a plan to deal with these problems that are coming along at breakneck speed.
Yes.
You talk about economic and social dislocations. A typical sheriff's department is going to be overwhelmed under those circumstances. Your county council is going to be overwhelmed by the problems that arise. If they don't have a plan in anticipation of these problems and a plan that draws in as many resources in the county, for instance, most sheriffs are elected in counties. If they don't, and who are those resources? Well, those are the people of the county, right?
Yes.
We have to draw as many of those people into the plan in order to deal most effectively with the chaotic situations that we see coming. Because that's the first thing we have to fend off. We have to be able to deal with that. And then we have to go to the higher levels of correcting the monetary system. That can be done at the state level. Correcting the absence of the militia, that can be certainly done at the state level. But it's going to depend upon grassroots activism, grassroots organization, grassroots participation. It cannot be done just by you and me, Randy, talking on the phone and getting out on the radio. Those people who are listening to us have to take action.
Absolutely. We've got another caller online. Who we got?
Hi, this is Ann. And
Hello, Ann.
I'm so glad you got to this, because, the previous caller, needs to get together with a group of people, his network, and we need to work on the networks that are out there, the mayor, the police, the fire, the first responders, the police, etc. So we have to start taking action now. We have to work through our churches, I think, too. See those people who are willing to open to the reality of what's going on and create a network that will get us to the powers that be that are already in place. And I know a lot of them will not be there for us, but work with the ones you have. Cliven Bundy said we need to go to our sheriffs and get those sheriffs identified along with the Oath Keepers that will stand up, because organizing a whole militia system is a major task, but we already have people in place who I think wouldn't betray us.
Well, I think the lady is absolutely right. We have to work with the ones who will work with us. And
you
emphasize
can't do it
to
all
those
by
people.
yourself. You have to get a group. You have to work on getting your network
get your own
together.
Group, and then come to those people in positions of legal authority and say, we need to cooperate with you. You need to cooperate with us.
Yes.
To deal with these problems. Please understand that in the final analysis, you, the people in political authority, you will be held accountable if you haven't taken these steps. And in fact, you're in political authority because you want, in some sense, to exercise that responsibility. So let's start exercising it, but you can't do it on your own. County council's not going to be enough. Small sheriff's department's not going to be enough. It's going to require participation by local people. And I think it's the local people that are going to have to go to those political authorities and not the other way around.
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks for calling in. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back. Questions, comments. Phone lines are open, 877-254-7524.
You're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com worldwide. Freedom is never free. We need your support today at FirstAmendmentRadio.com. Visit crosstheborder.org, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
I know you all want answers, and believe me, so do I, and I'll do my best to get them.
Despite Nicolas Cage's promise to do his best to get left behind rapture answers for us, don't hold your breath. Not everyone believes Left Behind is true prophecy. Some may even regard as conspiratorial the mainstream re-release of the Left Behind movie with actor Nicolas Cage portraying the main character as an attempt to further reinforce in the minds of all this perception of false prophecy in order to condition the masses for the play about to begin. If you want true Bible prophecy answers, get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. The author exposes the Latin rapture origin, the 7-year tribulation deception, true Bible revelation of Daniel's 70 weeks, the abomination of desolation, the restrainer, America in the revelation, the image of the beast and the mark of the beast, and the truth about God's chosen people, and so much more about Bible prophecy. This book will shatter the left behind paradigm of future events. Get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. Visit crosstheborder.org, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity, invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host, Melody Cedarstrom, right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free, 1-800-375-4188.
You're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com worldwide. Freedom is never free. We need your support today at FirstAmendmentRadio.com.
And we're back. Phone lines are open. Question or comment for my guest today, Dr. Edwin Vieira. His book's available at Amazon.com. Amazon.com. Just type in Edwin Vieira, V-I-E-I-R-A, Edwin Vieira. His articles at newswithviews.com and also YouTube. All kinds of seminars and speeches he's given. You need to listen to those, get up to speed on this. And Ann brought up about the churches, Dr. Vieira. In the founding of this nation, the social life was around the churches. And you could have a Sunday service, and after the service, because that was the facility that was able to seat the people, the militia met.
That's right. They're all the same people.
Yeah.
Right? They were simply changing their institutional hats from one moment to the next.
Yeah.
And the churches are very important here. Why? Because they're community centers. And they're theologically and morally based. I mean, that's their teaching, right? And how are you going to have a free society without those kinds of teachings underpinning it? The laws of nature and nature's God. Remember the Declaration of Independence? They're clear on this, right? So the churches would be in the forefront of it. Now, of course, a lot of them are afraid because they have their tax-exempt 501c3 status, and they don't want to go out and be making political statements and so forth. So I think it's a little late in the day to be worried about that.
Yes.
That's right. I think they have to take their evangelizing, as it were, into every realm of social activity now. And those pastors have to be leaders in the same sense that the pastors in the Revolutionary War period were leaders. They didn't shrink from making political statements.
Oh no! I mean, that's what rallied the people.
Exactly.
That's what gave the people the courage to stand up and say no.
No matter how you cut it, people will always need leadership, right?
Yes.
And they're going to look to a class of natural leaders. And I should hope that these pastors at the heads of these churches would be part of that group of the natural leaders. And people looking to them already, or they wouldn't be going to those churches, now would they? Right?
Right.
So it just I keep using the word natural, but it seems to me that's exactly what we're talking about here. It's got a natural law phenomenon that people in those capacities would perform leadership functions, and unfortunately, we don't see a lot of that happening. But I think it has to happen. That's another thing that has to happen. Those people have to come out of the woodwork, as it were, and start reasserting that role in society.
I mean, we've got a strong movement in Texas of the churches coming together and preparing for, quote, disaster. Okay, like the flooding going down in Texas.
Oh yes, all right.
And there's a whole group of churches in Austin, and they're up and running and called out, and they are helping folks sandbag. They're helping, whatever needs to be done, which is part of what the militia is about.
That's right. So they're filling in for an institution that should have been there And if it had been there, all of these preparations would already been made.
Yes.
People would already know how to do this. They'd already be organized for this. And so what we're seeing in that event, we saw that, of course, in the Hurricane Katrina, Hurricane Sandy, a number of these natural disaster events, the consequences of the absence of these institutional structures, just in terms of natural disasters. Forget about political disasters. Forget about economic disasters. Forget about an EMP destruction of the grid, the electric grid. Just the natural disasters which come along on a fairly regular basis. We see the adverse consequences of not having a militia structure, and then it is fortunate, of course, that the churches and others are going to try and step into that role. But they should have been preaching the necessity of the militia structure long ago.
Yes. But
and then a lot of these problems would have been solved.
What they're doing is saying, well, Brother Joe, we're going to pay that you get your Social Security disability check, and this disaster came through, so everybody sit still in here until the insurance adjuster gets here.
Mm-hmm.
They've taken that role that the people are supposed to form because we're supposed to love our neighbor. That's part of it.
Well, there's nothing more to loving your neighbor. I mean, there's no higher demonstration of loving your neighbor than performing this fundamental duty of protecting his security.
Yes.
Right? What greater love hath a man, other than lay down his life for another, right? Think about the ultimate purpose of the militia and security. Right? It falls right into that picture. Now, we're not going that far in terms of floods in Texas or hurricanes in Louisiana, but it's that same basic principle, that there is a community duty that everyone owes to everyone else. But to perform that duty, you have to be organized. You have to be equipped. You have to be trained. You have to recognize what your authority is. And when the crisis occurs, or one would hope even before the crisis occurs, you exercise that authority to prepare for that crisis and then to deal with it when it happens. And we have left that area of popular sovereignty, this real participation in running our own lives, we have left that to these experts in the monetary field, to the Janet Yellens, to the, you name the chairman of the Federal Reserve System over the years. In the security field, to the Department of Homeland Security, who's the fellow in charge there, Jay Johnson, right?
Yes.
And the FEMA operatives, and so forth and so on. We've seen how well they've done and how well they've prepared and what a mess they've made of everything they've touched in this country. And if that isn't enough to wake people up, what do they need to have fall on their heads? Right? This is empirically proven. This is scientifically proven. We've done the experiment with these people in the monetary field and the security field year after year, decade after decade, and nothing has come out of it but a first-class mess, and it's getting worse. Any scientist would tell you, well, now we know the result. And we can't continue to perform the experiment that way. It doesn't work. We don't get prosperity. We don't get security. All right? Any scientist will tell you that. Now, one thing I would add to what that lady said, very good comment she made. Most of the states have little FEMAs. They're little emergency management agencies, state emergency management agencies. And if they're anything like Virginia, they eventually run down to the local level, to the county or the city or the town or what have you. And there will be some emergency management coordinator or whatever name they will give him who is responsible for making some kind of plan for various emergency conditions within that local jurisdiction. And he may be tied in with the sheriff, or he may be a separate office there, but there he is. And he's also getting directives and plans coming out of the state capitol and probably out of Washington, D.C. from the Department of Homeland Security and FEMA.
And he's gone to a seminar, so he knows.
Yeah, he's gone to seminars. He's learned this, that. Now, there's a person that needs to be approached, because no matter what kind of a plan he has made on paper, it will not be effective without the participation and certainly the knowledge of the rest of the local community.
Absolutely. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Question, comment, phone lines are open.
Years ahead of the dominant media, FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net. The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening. Years ahead of the dominant media, FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net.
And we're back. Dr. Edwin Vieira, my guest. Phone lines are open. Question or comment, 877-254-7524. Check out his seminars and YouTube videos at YouTube. Just type in Edwin Vieira, Vieira. Also, his books available at Amazon.com, and his articles, newswithviews.com. Newswithviews.com. Yes, going to the county or emergency coordinator or whatever title they've given him, and I'm sure he's there in his little office, and he's got his computer, and there on the bookshelf is all of these three-wing binders going.
Right.
There's our plan.
And most of those plans, Randy, certainly in Virginia, they're supposed to be made public, or you could get them through Freedom of Information Act, State Freedom of Information Act, which I'm sure Colorado has a version of that.
Yes.
You want to look at those plans, that's number one. And you'll probably find that they're not completely realistic in the sense that they don't bring into play the vast majority of citizens. And then you want to come and suggest to those local emergency management people some additions. Oh, we could get volunteers to do this. We could help you this way. We could help you that way. All right? So that now you're tied into, you're connected, you're networking, if we use that term, the people who have legal authority with respect to this kind of planning and preparation. And they probably, unless they're the really rigid bureaucratic mindset, they will probably be very happy to have some people come along and say, well, we want to help you. We want to get more and more people in this county or this town or this city well acclimated and apprised of what's going on with these emergency plans so that they can participate effectively. I mean, I think here in Virginia, we have an emergency planning situation. One of the first things on the laundry list for which the local planners are supposed to prepare is what's called the use of food. That's the exact wording from the language, the use of food. Exact language from the statute. Well, what's the use of food? Eating it, right?
Yes.
So there's supposed to be a plan for people eating food where I live, Warren County, Virginia. We have 33,000-some people living in this county. If you look at the website, their plan is we'll have 3 days' worth of food in your home, your apartment or whatever. Well, what happens on day 4 or day 5? If you have a serious emergency, it's not going to be only 3 days long, right? The electric grid goes down, it could be months. Why don't they have a more detailed plan? Well, I don't know. Now, I think the Mormon Church, of course, has a highly detailed plan. for preparing families for food shortages. In fact, they don't have food shortages in the Mormon Church because they plan for it. All right.
Yes.
And I would think that that's the kind of thing, that kind of a plan, one could take to these local emergency planners and say, well, why aren't you promoting something like this? Why aren't we preparing our families for 30 days instead of 3, or 60 days, or 90 days, whatever? Why don't you have some sort of instructions for people? Oh, you don't? Well, we'll help you. We've organized a little group in our county that is working on this food security issue. And maybe we're going to take the Mormon Church's plan as our basic plan or whatever. And this group has worked something out, and we're going to give this to you, Mr. Emergency Management Coordinator. And we hope that you'll think about this seriously and maybe put some of this up on your website. And we're here to help not only you, but those people in the county who want to take advantage of this plan and implement it. Now, do you think that there wouldn't be at least some of these emergency management people who would not say, yes, absolutely, I want this kind of help?
Oh, absolutely there would.
Yeah, of course there would. And that's the first step to turning things around. Because now what happens? It's not simply this one bureaucrat, but it's a large segment, one would hope, a large segment of the local community that is participating directly in the making as well as the implementation of the plans. And now that's bringing, as I hate to use this word, but it probably is the correct one, empowerment back to the people. Because once those emergency management people realize, well, I've got to depend upon the local folks. I can't do this alone. And I'm going to be held responsible for the effectiveness of this plan, so it better be something that has been vetted by the local people. It better be something that will actually affect their lives in a positive manner if we have some kind of major disturbance, major crisis. And the best way to find out whether that's possible is to work with the local people themselves. And what do they want to see done? What can they do? How can they help themselves? Because they're not going to get help from the state capitol. They're not going to get help from Washington, D.C. when a major crisis hits. That's the lesson we should have learned long ago. If we're not prepared for it at the local level, it's not going to happen for a long time. Yeah, FEMA will send in the trailers loaded with formaldehyde, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what we'll get.
Yeah. And body bags.
Yeah, and body bags. Right, exactly.
Or like Katrina, truckloads of people and boats and water and food and, all this stopped and turned away by FEMA.
Yeah. You think of what sort of jackass gave that directive?
Well, it's encroaching on their little fiefdom.
Well, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. They think in terms of this very narrow bureaucratic control mechanism. If they haven't authorized it, it's not going to happen. And so you've got to turn that around. And you're not going to turn it around at the Department of Homeland Security level or the FEMA level, probably not even the FEMA level at the the state capitol. You're going to turn it around at the local level.
Yes.
That county level, city level, town level, where these emergency management people have to deal with their own friends, neighbors, and maybe relatives, right? They have to answer to people whom they can actually see, as opposed to people in Washington who do what they do because they don't see you and they don't want to see you. They're not interested in you. But these local people have a responsibility. I think a lot of them recognize that responsibility. But they need help. So give it to them. Come to them with a plan. Take a look at what they've done, improve on it, come to them with a plan that shows them how large numbers of people in their communities are going to work with them to make their job successful. And also to save the rest of the people in that jurisdiction from the bad effects of the crisis, obviously, right? We're not doing just it for them.
Absolutely. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Finish off today's show here on the American Freedom Network.
Howdy, folks. Have you ever thought about having your own
I pledge allegiance to the King of Kings and to his kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. One holy nation, under our Heavenly Father, grace, mercy, justice for all.
Gold and silver is tremendously undervalued. Global demand vastly exceeds mine supply by more than 60% annually. There is little in the financial world more certain than a coming explosion in the prices of gold and silver. The U.S. dollar continues to lose value and respect as the world's reserve currency. Our nation faces challenges on many fronts, and a day doesn't pass without another economist bringing forth warnings of impending economic calamity. There has never been a better time than right now to acquire physical gold and silver. Discount Gold and Silver Trading was founded on the principles of truth and honesty. We believe in providing a quality product, quality service, and most importantly, competitive pricing. We provide all forms of precious metals, including American gold, silver, platinum, and rare investment and circulated coins. Silver bars, rounds, and 90% silver bags are on hand for the silver investor. Gold self-directed IRAs are available. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free, that's 1-800-375-4188. If you'd like to get a copy of this program, you may subscribe at FirstAmendmentRadio.com for only $45 a month, and you'll receive an MP3 CD weekly of all of our programs. As a bonus, we'll send you a password for our audio archives online. That's a $15 value. Or you may request any month of any program on one MP3 CD for a minimum donation of only $25, or any single program on tape, MP3 CD, or CD for only $15. You may do all of this online at FirstAmendmentRadio.com. Just follow the instructions to make a donation or subscribe. You may also adopt an hour of your favorite program. Please don't forget that most of the programs on FirstAmendmentRadio.com are listener-supported. Don't do Internet? Then call 559-781-3773 and we'll be honored to help you. Thank you from all of us here at FirstAmendmentRadio.com.
You're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com worldwide. Freedom is never free. We need your support today at FirstAmendmentRadio.com.
Just type in Edwin Vieira, V-I-E-I-R-A, Edwin Vieira. Also on YouTube, his articles at newswithviews.com. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. That state is not free as far as the people's time, effort. It's not free like a handout.
That's right. Freedom is a very expensive endeavor.
Yes.
You have to participate in it. Self-government is not a spectator sport by definition, right? Self-government means you are doing something to govern yourself and the community in which you live, and that is not going to be free in terms of time, in terms of effort, perhaps in terms of finances. You're going to have to put some of yourself into that process. And that's our difficulty. We have a lot of people in this country who are overindulgent. They don't want to take action that they feel they don't need to, especially if somebody else is going to do the job for them. All right?
Yes.
They're willing to listen to authority figures, the Janet Yellens of the world, the Janet Napolitano when she was head of Homeland Security, those types of people.
Oh, if you see something, say something.
Yeah. But no, you have to come out of your shell, just like the chick does at a certain stage. You have to come out of your shell and live your own life politically as well as economically and socially. And that's the whole militia concept, that everyone in the community needs to provide some effort to secure the community in all of the different ways that security may be provided, whether that's social, whether it's economic, whether it's legal, whether it's the ultimate security against invasion of one kind or another, or insurrection or what have you, the kind of violent situation you can imagine. Somebody in that community has the skill to provide some element of security. And what is necessary is to mobilize those people, and ultimately for those people to recognize that they have a duty to be mobilized. They really need to come forward. They shouldn't be waiting for someone to call on them. They should be coming forward and saying, well, here's what I can do. Or maybe asking the question, what can I do? Here's the skills I have. What can I do to help provide security? Our difficulty is we don't have the institutional structure. That's what the militia structure is supposed to draw out of people, ultimately. We don't have that institutional structure. We have to recreate it. And we need to do it step by step, from the bottom up, with local people, because nobody else is going to do it for us, Randy.
No, they're not.
That's right. It's us or nothing. Oh, well, I shouldn't say nothing, because the people in Washington have a plan for us, right? The internationalists, the globalists have a plan for us. So it's either us or their plan. And you've seen how well their plan has worked out so far for
their
us.
Plan is corrugated tin, and by the way, we make the very best cardboard in the world here in America. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, you take a look at those third world favelas, as they call them in places like Brazil, right?
Yes.
And you get an idea.
That's
right.
their plan.
That's their plan.
Dr. Vieira, thanks so much for taking time to be with us.
Oh, thank you, Randy. Anytime.
God bless and hang in there. And remember, folks, the question is not, do you know the Lord Jesus Christ? The question is, does he know you?
And of his fullness we have all received.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host, Melody Cedarstrom, right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time.